How's it going? I'm Dr. J, and finally, after at least a month or two of working on nothing other than metanet.gg, I'm back with a new video, and this time it's 15 tips for mastering Snake in Smash Ultimate. I tried to categorize the tips into how and what to practice, followed by tips to improve your mindset, and finally, some general game plan and metagame tips. Also, if you happen to be interested in reading through this guide, or having a little printout cheat sheet of it or something, I'll be posting it on metanet.gg. Okay, enough with the self-sponsoring, onto the guide. Tip number 1. Master your movement in normals first. Everyone knows that Snake generally wants to stay far away from his opponent and throw explosives, so the first thing any good player does when they see you pick Snake is think, how can I get in, or how can I outcamp him? So if the first thing your opponents master in the Snake matchup is how to play against his special moves, then the first thing you should master is everything but his specials. I know this seems counterintuitive, since you can honestly beat really good players with Snake using almost nothing but dash attack, grab, and specials, but the vast majority of characters can't outcamp Snake, even if the Snake is only a decent zoner. So if you're already a pretty decent zoner, as in you're at least relatively competent with your specials, you should probably focus your efforts on improving your movement and timing your tilts and aerials before you start learning crazy C4 sticking combos and wave bouncing grenades. Also, Snake's movement and normals are really not that hard to master in comparison to some other characters, so it's not that much of a time commitment. Anyway, onto grenades. Learn your grenade timings and pickups. This one is obvious, but it's easier said than done. It really just comes from playing the character, as it has to become muscle memory. The tricky part is that under pressure, your adrenaline can kick in, so your sense of exact time can be slightly distorted, and focusing on counting to 2.5 in your head all the time makes it hard to notice other things. So again, grenade explosion timings just have to be ingrained into your brain. Also, remember to drop and pick up your grenades to throw them manually. Again, obvious, but some people just forget to do this. Tip 3 is Nikita trajectory. The Nikita is easily one of the best projectiles in the game, and it has a lot of different uses. One trick that I find really useful is practicing using the Nikita in a way that lets it keep moving forward towards your target after you cancel it, which you do just by pressing shield, by the way. So basically sending the Nikita at about a 45-degree upward angle and canceling it can let it cover an area in a way similar to an angled up smash, and it's really tricky to maneuver around. These next tips deal with improving your mindset and your reactions. Number 4 is relax your hands. This one seems so obvious I almost feel dumb for putting it here, but this is a huge deal for improving your Smash game. First off, if you want to get good, you have to play a lot, and playing with a controller grip that's stressful on your hands is not only going to limit your ability to play for extended periods of time, and reduce the lifespan of your career as a gamer, but it will also limit your ability to make quick, light, and precise movements. Frankly, this is just a general Smash tip, but it's especially important for Snake. Number 5 is no emotion. Let's face it, your opponent is going to get annoyed at you for zoning them, and you're going to eventually get salty when your opponent starts reflecting and absorbing your projectiles, and this is just something you have to stop worrying about. You want your opponent to be emotionally invested because it throws their game off and makes them predictable, so don't try to play fancy or cool just because you want people to think you're cool. Results are more important than Twitter combos, and also, never ever lose your cool as Snake. As any zoner, you have to take out all emotion from your gameplay so that you're always ready to react with a clear head. Number 6 is walk, don't run. Snake requires a lot of precision and quick, clean reactions, and at close range, you might need to gently pivot into an up tilt or grab, and sometimes you need to walk slightly forward or backwards to get the right spacing. So make sure you're able to walk without dashing. I guess changing the sensitivity on your control stick could help, but frankly I think it's just a matter of practice. Also, Snake's crouch is available much quicker when walking or standing in place than while running, which makes ducking on reaction easier. Number 7 is always do something, but never too much. Obviously, with a character like Snake, you should pretty much always be pulling out a projectile or creating a setup of some kind whenever you're camping or in neutral. However, once people start getting pretty good at Smash, they sometimes like to basically spam tech skills and go for crazy combos, pressing buttons really fast, which is really not a good idea with Snake. You should never do significantly more than you actually have to, so that you can focus entirely on what your opponent is doing rather than subconsciously focusing on looking flashy. Honestly, this is something that I personally struggle with. Number 8 is take the first stock and hold your ground. This is pretty much the same as one of my 15 tips for mastering Samus, but basically Snake works really well when he's in the lead due to his defensive kit and survivability. He's also not really good at approaching, so playing with the stock disadvantage can be pretty tricky. So understand the importance of taking the first stock, and when you do have a stock lead, do everything in your power to safely chip on as much damage as possible before losing that advantage. Number 9 is learn your flowcharts, but don't be a flowchart. Obviously, certain flowcharts can be very useful for Snake, especially when it comes to ledge trapping and tech chasing, but just make sure that your overall game plan isn't completely predictable. If you want to learn more about Snake's flowcharts when tech chasing, especially out of grab, check out my Smash Corners video on optimizing Snake's grab. I personally found it pretty useful. Number 10 is parry and conserve your shield. Your shield is an extremely valuable resource, and parrying is a practically broken mechanic when it's mastered, so obviously practice parrying and start getting that down. But also, don't forget to conserve your shield and dodge scaling by never using them more than necessary. Number 11 is active conditioning, and I guess this is where we get into the more general gameplay tips and metagame stuff. Anyway, actively try to force your opponent into picking a certain option by establishing a pattern in your opponent's head of what you like to do, and then switch to a completely different set of options in order to catch your opponent off guard. Obviously, the mix-up should be calculated based on what you're conditioning them to do. This is basically what it means to think one step ahead in Smash. Number 12 is stay on the ground when you're close. It's fine to jump around from across the stage to mix up your grenade placements, but you really don't want to be caught out in the air at close range. Snake does have landing options, but you really don't want to be using aerials all that much. And that's not to say that all of his aerials aren't incredibly useful in a lot of situations, but in most cases only down air and back air are viable at close range, and maybe nair. But on the ground, you have access to amazing close-range tools such as grab, shield, F-tilt, up-tilt, and crouch. And speaking of which, number 13 is remember to crouch. I alluded to it earlier, but most beginner Snakes, and even decent ones under pressure, completely forget just how good their crouch is in most matchups. It can go completely under a ton of projectiles, aerials, and even grabs, so it's an amazing defensive tool as long as you're reacting with it and not just crawling around the stage. Number 14 is mix up your landings. And honestly, I almost called this tip just fast fall air dodge. Like I said earlier, being above your opponent as Snake is a pretty bad position, but luckily he does have a bunch of decent ways of escaping the situation. Obviously, you could just hold on to a grenade and hope that your opponent gets hit by it, but probably the best option for landing that I see way too many people neglect is fast fall neutral air dodge. Without getting too deep into the mechanics of air dodge landing lag, the fastest and safest ways to land and be able to act afterwards is usually to simply fast fall, quickly let go of or reset your control stick, and then press shield. It's incredibly good for escaping juggles and such, getting back onto the stage after recovering high, and you can act almost immediately after landing. Number 15 is guerrilla warfare. Every good mercenary knows not to telegraph your game plan to the enemy, and don't engage unless you think that you'll win the engagement. It goes back to the old idea of never fighting a battle you don't already know you'll win. I was really tempted to go into a whole thing about The Art of War by Sun Tzu, but frankly I think you get the idea here. Although if you are interested in hearing about The Art of War in terms of Smash from my perspective, I guess I could make a video on that. I would be really interested in that. I just don't think people would be interested, so let me know in the comments. But anyway, interjection aside, don't engage unless you think you're going to win the engagement. Do also, though, factor in the element of surprise by occasionally doing something calculated but unexpected. And by that I mean unexpected as in running in with a dash attack after camping for a little bit, and not just randomly holding F smash and hoping that they'll be surprised and run into it. Anyway, that's all for now. I'll probably be doing this with a couple of other characters, probably Young Link next, just because he's the character that I know most about, aside from Samus of course. And I will also be streaming soon, which if you want more content about Samus, honestly that's probably the best place to go, because that's what I do is I play Samus and I give tips about it. So yeah. Although I may have a couple more videos on Samus, we'll see. No promises. Anyway, that's all for now, and peace.